Hey friends, Don Immel here. In May we had an awesome ministry summit. We've gotten so many points of feedback through the survey. And first of all, thank you for completing the survey and letting us know how things went. That's how we improve ourselves. So tremendous. Thank you so much for that feedback. One of the things that we did not get to visit upon is next year's Ministry Summit. Next year's Ministry Summit will be during the first full week of May, May 4 through 6, 2020. And this year's upcoming Ministry Summit will be at Allison Park Church on the Pittsburgh side of the district. And so we want to invite you out and make sure that you put that on your calendar. We look forward to Jeff Leake and his staff hosting our event. It'll be a great time as usual. Our main speaker for our ordination service is going to be Aaron Burke. Aaron is pastor of Radiant Church in Tampa, Florida, and has just done a knockout job. Being under 40 himself, planted a church with very little resources. He doesn't have a national name, and yet his church has sprung up and grown. Now a multi-site church running over 2,000 on any given Sunday. So we're really looking forward to hearing from Aaron Burke. And two of the points of our focus for Ministry Summit 2020 are going to be church planting and church revitalization. We'll have two different tracks that will give information and hopefully inspiration. We'll look forward to having you there. There'll be more details, of course, coming up in the weeks and months. But today we wanted to introduce a new series, a video series, where we're going to have coffee together and just spend a few moments unpacking some important concepts and ministries as we move forward from this last year's Ministry Summit. And as you know, we unpacked our direction and our vision and our passion. Healthy pastors, thriving churches. And so I want to talk a little bit about healthy pastors today. And let me ask you to do a little physical. Find your pulse, not your physical pulse, so that's important too. If you don't have one of those, might want to call somebody right away. But we're talking about your person's pulse. And we talked at Ministry Summit about 5 areas of health in the pastor's life. And I think we need to expand it to 6, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But physical health, how are we doing physically? I had a friend and a brother, one of our fellow pastors, come up to me, and he met with me some number of weeks ago, and he said, Pastor Don, if we're going to talk about physical health, you might want to maybe think about modeling that. Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate that. But it's a great challenge, and I embrace that challenge. And so I've set some health goals for this year and next, because as we progress, if we don't give attention to things, they will tend to fall. The old saying that I have chest of drawers disease, my chest has fallen into my drawers. Well, if we don't intentionally take care of ourselves physically, we have that second law of thermodynamics that tends to overtake us, and that's anything left go to itself tends to deteriorate. And that's true in our physical world. So physical health is one of those areas that we want to give attention to. Another area is mental health. Not very often talked about in our tribe, but I'll tell you, there are some of our folks who have had difficult seasons emotionally and mentally, and they've had to seek out some help. And that's the right thing to do when we're struggling. But how do we sharpen ourselves mentally and then emotionally as well? Those two things tend to coincide with each other. One directly affects the other. And so as we move forward, we want to talk about healthy pastors physically, cognitively or mentally, emotionally, and then relationally. Our relationships also need to be in good repair. If I don't take care of my yard, the grass will overtake my yard. And last night I was out I have a water feature in my backyard that I installed a couple of years ago, one of my hobbies. And I was walking around and pulling the weeds because here's the reality. You either take care of the weeds or they grow up and they overtake you. So how are things going in your relationships? I think of Paul's words that say, be sure that no root of bitterness grows up and defiles you. Then the last area that we talked about was spiritual health. And of course, as ministers and as people of God, that tends to rise to the top. How are you doing spiritually? What are you doing to feed your spirit man? Do you have time in your rhythms and in your schedule to nourish that part of you? Prayer, reading the word, soaking in the Spirit, flowing in the gifts of the Spirit in your private time. These are good habits. And then a sixth area that we didn't talk about, but we better mention, is financial health. How are your finances? I learned a number of years ago that finances need to be one of my hobbies. No one cares about my business as much as I do. And so my wife and I have regular weekly conversations about the state of our finances, where money is going, where it needs to go, where savings needs to happen, those kinds of things. Before Ministers Enrichment this year, John Holt and Stan Williams are going to conduct a little retirement tune-up. You might be in your 20s or 30s or early 40s, and this doesn't seem like it's relevant. I'll tell you what, 60 comes around pretty quickly. And if we don't attend to financial health in our 20s and 30s and early 40s, when we hit our 60s, we're going to be in a state of panic. Healthy pastors, we're concerned about you. We love you. We care about you. We want to see good things inputted into your person. So how are you doing? Take your personal pulse and let's have some conversations. We're going to be doing that in the upcoming weeks and months, and so we look forward to having those conversations together. Hey, for today, God bless you. Goodbye. Have a great day, a great week of ministry, and we'll talk to you next time.